Concentration 64. Category is colors. Blue. We're back. Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey chapter 64. It is Tuesday, aka the Quadzilla workout. We are going to the regular gym today, no special gym today. I'm 99% sure they already closed down the other one or have told other people that they're closing it down because yesterday it was packed beyond belief. So we'll see how today goes. Hopefully I can actually get a squat rack. That'd be a piece de resistance. I really want one. But anyways, feeling good, legs feeling good, a little tired, but nothing too crazy. I'm feeling all right. Nothing in the lower body or upper body is going crazy. Upper body's a little sore, but it doesn't matter. Tomorrow will be interesting to see since tomorrow is going to be the first of the weird days since I won't have the off day. I'm just going to go straight back into the normal, what would be vampire killer. So that'll be very interesting to see. On the good news front, I have finally gotten the tracking for my camera to come. So it is coming sometime soon. I don't know when, maybe in the next 3 days. Hopefully it'll be here, but it's shipped out. So it's shipping out today. So more likely than not, depending on where it's coming from, anywhere to 3 to 5 days. If it was from where I sent my camera the first time, 3 days. If it's somewhere else, depends, obviously. Yeah, if it's from there, it's 3 days. So hopefully by Friday, should have it. So I'm very happy about that. So next week should be back to normal on multiple fronts. Actually, I posted a community post yesterday about how this week's videos are going to be a little strange. Whenever I get them done, they're just going to be uploaded versus how I usually have them scheduled out at 1. A lot of stuff going on this week. I don't know if I'm even going to get any real videos done, honestly, just because there's so much stuff going on this week personally. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyways, so to get a little bit to the main subject matter at hand, is this a ridiculous subject matter for this episode? Yes, of course. I literally was thinking, what am I going to talk about today? And I was watching Eric Bugenhagen talk about critiquing exercise tier list, and I was like, oh man, we could go down the science rabbit hole. And then I was like, oh right, it's episode 64. Nintendo 64. So it was as simple as 1, 2, boom, done. I can just talk about this for a little bit because actually the Nintendo 64 has come up recently multiple times in 2 different fashions. First one is that there was a short talking about the GoldenEye pause music, which is amazing and great. I might actually end up doing some of the music of some good N64 games in the background, just as why not, because, you know, who cares? But also they're great and they're old enough that, you know, Nintendo doesn't necessarily care per se, depending. Obviously it always depends, but still, yeah, that particular one was funny. And also the other day I decided to pick up my Switch just to check it out, what was going on it, because I always like checking out what's happening on the old emulator stores, you know, see what other games they've added. And I saw that they had 1080 snowboarding on the Nintendo 64 one, so I was playing that for a little bit and it was bringing back a lot of fucking memories playing that one. So I was like, whoa. I remember the entire trying to do a 1080 in that game being the most complicated assortment of buttons all at once. And I could always get to a 720, never to a 1080 every single time because it was so hard, especially on the practice mode where it was all those ramps and jumps and stuff. So tough. But those were 2 things, and I was like, all right, since this is probably going to be not necessarily the only time this discussion topic will probably come up, because I'll probably have like an episode about Nintendo eventually, or just like nostalgia, because there will be an episode about nostalgia in its general forms or whatever. But I guess that I wanted to take advantage of the fact that I can talk about particularly the Nintendo 64 here, and that it's probably going to be the only time I'll just talk about it, you know, generally speaking, of course. And the ridiculousness that all of the N64 games all had 64 in the title. Like, that was just like how all the Super Nintendo games had Super in it, you know? Found it so ridiculous, but it's also, you know, thinking about it now, there is nothing like that nowadays. So it's kind of nice. It's like, okay, it was part of that era of video games that you just don't get anymore. They have like director's cuts or like definitive editions or like, you know, remakes or reimaginings or whatever, but it's not the same as, like, you know, it's which one it is by if I say Super Mario 64, you know what I mean? Doom 64. There's certain games that's just 64. Thinking about it generally, oh my god, there's a crash that happened right here. Are you shitting me? Holy shit, they blocked off the entire road. But anyways, back to Nintendo 64. I think in the voiceover we'll talk a little bit more about how it was probably it was the second to last best party system ever. GameCube was the last one, I think. But playing these games again and again, playing something like 1080 kind of holds up. Like, I was surprised at how much it holds up. It made me want to replay like GoldenEye, because that was part of the games that are on the Switch thing. So I want to play that and check that out. I want to see if it still holds up. And there are a few others. I think I'll talk a lot about the particular N64 games that are memorable and actually influenced some of the things that I have going on right now, like the book that I'm reading. So with that being said, I will see you on the inside. All right, so on this day I start off with squats. They are pretty good. They felt pretty great. It's been a week since this actually happened, so a little bit of a trying to remember what I felt like in the moment, but they felt pretty good. Nothing too crazy, thankfully. My hip didn't feel hurt, and also taking that Friday off was kind of nice, so it made everything feel great for this particular workout. So I think to talk a little bit more about this main subject, which is, I gotta say, is kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, I'm very excited about talking about a lot of this stuff. First, I gotta say, I mentioned in the car segment about the influence that it has to me on this day, particularly N64. One game, the game that had influence on me was Shadows of the Empire, the Star Wars game. My brother and I played it a long time ago and still have it. I still have the same cartridge with all the same save file and everything on it. And recently I ended up buying that book that the game was based off of, and I'm reading it in between my sets. Spoiler alert, which will be an entire video on its own, just reading in between sets and all that other jazz, just talking about that, and a book review, because so far the book is really good. Even then, that was influenced by that video game, with the fact that, I know this is based off a book. I want to read the book. And that's why I ended up buying the book randomly one day. So yeah, even to this day, the influence of the Nintendo 64 still felt in my life, which is kind of insane. Also, by the way, totally fucking missed this thing. Had a little bit of a heart attack. I forgot that this happened, and I was like, oh, thank God I didn't fuck up there by letting it go. I knew, I was like, as soon as I felt it, I was like, fuck me, but at least I caught it perfectly and then put it on there. Nothing too crazy. So thankfully, nothing happened of that. But anyways, speaking of the influence that this generation has had, particularly the N64/PS1 generation, I mean, a lot of the influence from these two generations are still felt to this day, this and the PS2 one. But even that generation with those two systems, I mean, you still get remakes and remasters of all of these games that people want to see over and over and over again. It's wild to see, and I think that influence, they are probably the almost peak of gaming, because the peak of gaming is the next generation with the PS2 and the Xbox. I think that's peak gaming. I don't think anything else will top that, no matter what. It might have been carried a little bit with the PS3 and the 360, but then after that, it was just fall off. At that point, it was starting to fall off a little bit. But in comparison, it's still pretty good, you know? But there's so many things, like particularly from that era, the N64 era, that is quite felt to this day still, and it's quite interesting, you know? It is the second most influential era of gaming, and it is great that I got to grow up in that. One of the crazier parts about N64, I mean, back in the day, was the fact that you could have a room full of kids at a party preoccupied with one N64. You just needed at least two controllers, and you had an entire room full of kids, like, just dedicated to that thing. Like a 12-inch screen that had, like, the fat, chubby back, and we're good to go for the next 5 hours while there's a party going on in the background. I remember it was GoldenEye and Smash. Those were the top two games always played no matter what. And then the third place would be Mario Kart if somebody had it and or brought it. I remember somebody ended up bringing a copy of WrestleMania 2000, which was also great. You just picked it up and played, and I think there was something great about that you could just pick up any game and immediately start playing it, and just you kind of get it. You don't necessarily need to know too much. Not like nowadays where you kind of have to figure it out a little bit. Obviously, there are some games that are still, like, you know, relatively easy to pick up, but there was just something intuitive
innovative about those games, at least. Even though the controller was weird, if we can admit that. The N64 controller was very fucking weird. It was that boomerang with a little like extra banana in the middle of it. But still, there's so many games. A lot of the games that still hold up to this day. Some of them don't, but they're still relatively good. I want to say that it's some of the best games of all time, obviously. And I think that there's something about the originality and the creativity making from that era that make the classics that they are now that is lacking in current gaming. But that is a conversation for another day. Forgot to mention this, but I gotta say, the N64, second best party system. First best always will be the Wii, because the Wii anybody could play. Then it was the N64 because of the simplicity, and then third is definitely the GameCube. We can make an argument about the Switch, but the Switch might be too new and people are too socially awkward nowadays to have parties.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed. Calf raises. Why? Because I completely forgot to do it, and it sucked. I was like, I had finished them, and I was like, fuck, I forgot to record them. So that's why the wrist rollers are by themselves, which is annoying. But besides that, oh my god, is this person not gonna really... Exercises skipped? None! Got everything in because everything was available. Although the gym was more packed, so I'm starting to suspect that people are starting to come to this one over the other one that hasn't closed yet. It's supposed to close next week, but I think more people are coming from that one to this one. So yeah, that's gonna be fun to have to deal with. But anyways, it is what it is. I'm excited to get my camera back, so then that way the calf raise fiasco, even though it wasn't really a fiasco, but I like, embellishing it, that fiasco doesn't happen again. The main subject matter at hand, I just wanted to talk more about the fact that going back and playing old school games like that, some of them hold up, some of them do not hold up. I know Super Mario 64 holds up. Smash Brothers kind of holds up, but there are better versions that have come out since. I know that there are versions of games such as like Resident Evil 2 and I think the Spider-Man game are slightly better on the N64, which is kind of insane that they even managed to put that on there. It's such a bygone time of video games. It kind of makes me sad that we don't get these types of video games anymore, where you're just kind of like, all right, let's check it out, and it's probably going to be good, where the most expansion that you need is the little red thing for certain games, and that's it. That's all you really needed to buy. You didn't have to download a day one patch to wait for all the DLC to come out so that you could buy the Game of the Year edition. None of that bullshit. You had to deal with like other peripheral stuff, like Pokemon Stadium. You had the thing where you can put your cartridge in, which was sick. Loved that. Rumble Pack, that came with certain games, like Duke Nukem, I believe, came with one. So, or could use it. I think it could use it, but Star Fox came with it. But there's just a bygone era of video games that I don't think we'll ever get back to. Maybe one day I'll make a video about the death of video games and how it should happen relatively soon. I'm praying for the downfall, but that's a whole other subject for a whole other day. Personally, I think I'm going to go down a little bit of a nostalgia hole for a little bit. I need to go back a little bit, explore a little bit of past themes, what made what, and possibly go back and actually beat Ocarina of Time, because I've yet to actually beat Ocarina of Time. I have also never really touched Majora's Mask. I've touched Majora's Mask, but I haven't really played it, because Majora's Mask, a whole other beast that I never wanted to get into. But I want to check it out, because I know people fucking go crazy for that game. So I might have to check it out. But with that being said, tell me what you think in the comments below. Would love to hear your opinions on the Nintendo 64 or just video games in general, because a classic machine with enough games that have still influence to this day. I mean, Ocarina of Time is still considered the best Zelda game. Second is usually Majora's Mask. There haven't been many after that. There are some, people, argue Twilight Princess and a couple others, but those are like the top. That era of gaming is unmatched. And to put it on the other side, the Sony Sisters side, real quick, I mean, Final Fantasy VII, it's still being remade over and over again. So, that was just an era of video games that will never be recreated, I believe. So, with that being said, tell me what you think in the comments below. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I will be on tomorrow with something brand new. Thank you very much for watching, and I appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.